Well, hello to everyone, and let me start by this. This guy that most of you might be able to recognize. For me, the brightest and most brilliant mind in the last, I would say, 50 years, with all due respect, Steve Jobs, the man who transformed the way we connect, consume, and communicate today, according to his biography in here, J. Elliott. The Steve Jobs Way. Now, let me show you a couple of things concerning what I consider should be respected in there. It all actually began here with the German words. I like to translate them for you. Today, better than ever before. How would be, in my opinion, as a teacher, the optimal conditions for education today? So, let me show you what I wrote here. I wrote those 7 conditions. But instead of translating them, let me please explain to you what I mean by all those things that I wrote there in German. So let me show you the books that actually inspired me to focus on each and every single aspect of those. This book here, as you can see, a little bit older, was the first book that I received about computers. I got it from my mother when I was studying informatics. And actually, for me, represents all data that we all have and we need and we should have in hand all the time. That is why I put this as the very first thing we all need. Plenty of information and data, especially the good. That is what I mean by material at hand, available to you. Always data, always information, one click away. So we should be really smart at what kind of material we select, what kind of information. It's our responsibility. Number 2, plenty of examples at home. So why should I include this in my optimal way of teaching and educating? Because of the following man I'm going to show you. Because of this man here, John Rosemond's 6-point plan for raising happy children, where he mostly says, in what I understood, is teaching by example. When you show your kids how you behave at home, they would learn more than of any other speech that you give them. So that is like teaching by example. And I believe that in that principle. Let's continue with the next topic in here. When I talk about in German, that word Selbstständigkeit is like autonomy. When you promote autonomy. So what is the book that I actually would like to refer to this one? Well, for me, the best example is given here. Quirky would be the word in the book written by Melissa A. Schilling. And then she says, as you can read in here, the remarkable story of the traits, foibles, and genius of breakthrough innovators who changed the world. So why would I say this? Because it's actually the autonomous way, I would say, in believing and following and pursuing our own ideas. Even if they might seem wrong at the beginning, you never know where they lead you to. And that is actually what happened in the lives of those very remarkable men. I mean, when you read a book that mentions Albert Einstein, Benjamin Franklin, Elon Musk, Dean Kamen, Nikola Tesla, Marie Curie, Thomas Edison, and Steve Jobs, I do think that these people had a lot to say about innovation, invention, and autonomy. I would say in believing in you first. Point number 4 would be for me the most important issue of anybody, and in German I'm going to read that very slowly for you, which is Selbstwertgefühl. For the ones of you that understand German, you know this is something that a man, Nathaniel Branden, mentioned. And I consider that word the most important aspect of any process. And I will tell you why. Precisely, the power of self-esteem. That is quintessential what actually here Mr. Nathaniel Branden said in a book that I got in Barnes Nobles for a very good price. And many consider him the father of the self-esteem movement. And why do I say this? And here, I consider that quintessential for any project, especially your own life project. Hello to everyone again, and thanks for your time. So, why the think about the self-esteem issue? I like to tell you my story a little bit. There was a time when I actually was performing, so to speak, not that bad in school. I was always looking for having better grades, always looking for understanding better. And I have to confess, I didn't have always the best teachers, but I tried to do my best, and some things were confusing for me, one way or the other. I would say like most of us. But somehow I knew that when I saw somehow special, I would say, appreciation from the teacher, let's say a certain degree of respect, then I learned better, especially in Germany, because I compare both educations, the Colombian one and the German one. So I say that this kind of self-esteem is the one issue that actually motivates anybody to learn more, to look for better ways, to reinvent himself or herself, especially now. Most of the people I have had as students, myself as a teacher, they don't even believe in themselves when they have to learn, let's say, for example, English or German or any other language of the languages that I teach. So actually, the question is, your brain has the capacity to recognize and to do so much more if you just develop that one issue. The power of self-esteem, because that way your brain starts believing, starts getting better, starts improving, starts writing down, starts following your routine. But it all starts with, let's say, unblocking your mind. And that is why I would like to say that those books in here helped me for my first unblocking, but especially the one I just mentioned. The thing in the book about the self-esteem, the one that I wrote here in German. Look at this. Again, I like to mention that in here. Selbstwertgefühl. Crucial and quintessential, in my opinion, concerning education today. And let me go back to this man in here. Steve Jobs again. For the kind of attitude he had when he rescued his company. Again, twice I would say, at least. So the kind of attitude that he had about trusting himself, he was really, really smart. Most people consider him a genius. I myself too. But it's actually the attitude, the kind of attitude we need to solve problems. Because remember, our brain is a problem solver. So what is the word for this in German? That word, Einstellung, is the kind of attitude we all need. Not under circumstances that are really hard and difficult. But we do know that with a proper attitude, we have the capacity to solve problems, like I wrote there in German. To solve problems would be Probleme zu lösen. And why do I say that this is quintessential and important? Out of one single reason. Because of this message, a message to Garcia, written by Mr. Albert Hubbard in 1899. And basically it says that when you have a mission, you have to deliver. And then I have to say, we all encounter difficulties, problems, obstacles, this and that, I know. But today, better than ever, we know that certain attitudes can help us overcome all possible obstacles, and the brain has the capacity to go into a path where the brain is looking for solutions one way or the other. And that is precisely what this guy did. Here and here. Check this out. Because there was a time when Apple was more or less on the brink of extinction, and he came again to rescue it, and that is very admirable. And I know, sometimes we think that we have to be a genius to solve this, but no, I think it goes beyond that. The question is actually having the proper attitude. So, attitude is everything, I would say. And let me go to the next point, point number 6. Habits, Gewohnheiten. Gewohnheiten des Gewinners would be like the habits of the winner. And who is the guy that, in my opinion, represents this best? This guy, Bill Gates. In this book here, in Spanish is Road to the Future, he is basically the man that recognized all the opportunities that were presented to him. When you see what happened with the DOS, disk operating system at the beginning, he just discovered it, as he confessed in one of his, let's say, biographies. The same about the Windows program that he got actually from Steve Jobs' company, and he himself got it from Xerox, but this is another story. The issue here, the thing is that he was able to recognize opportunities when they were there. So he knew how to use them. Maybe not totally ethical one way or the other, but I think in today's business world and in the evolution, it's actually not that bad that you see an opportunity and use that in your advantage. So when you see that this guy has the capacity to recognize opportunities, especially because he programmed his mind to recognize those, it's always good for us to say, well, it's much better if I program my brain into recognizing the opportunities that I have, even in moments like this of difficulties. And number 7, not necessarily the best, but for me, something that we should keep in mind. If I say that in German, the word for responsibility is this, Verantwortung. Why? Because of the following guy. This man, Elon Musk. And in this biography, a New York Times bestseller, I would say that Mr. Ashley Vance, well, he mentions a couple of things that actually this guy was able to do, and is very admirable and remarkable too. I mean, there are plenty of things that people criticize, and I don't totally agree with the things that he actually represents. But concerning the accountability or the sense of responsibility, in my opinion, this is the man. When you knew that he had to assume and put all his money in the companies just mentioned here, SpaceX, Tesla, and Solar City, you will see that this guy actually had the capacity to assume responsibilities where others didn't. Those are then my 7 points to succeed in education. And I know one way or the other it might be very different depending where you are or what is your particular scenario. What I do know is most people today, I dare to say, have access to information. So that is why I say when you use that information in your advantage, you might find a couple of books that really inspire you to start, let's say, unblocking your mind. Let's say breaking those classical mental barriers that were actually put in our brain, so to speak, in the past. I would say the kind of false blueprint. So the intention for me is that if you really start with a proper mind, might be that you don't have all those millions and billions and whatever, or precisely the kind of business you would like to have now. But I do believe that you open up a world of possibilities if you just start doing that, what is most convenient for you, which is developing the proper attitude. When I say here proper attitude, or the power of self-esteem, or your autonomy, when you have to assume the autonomy, and then plenty of good examples, like the biographies, like I mentioned before, because all the information is at hand for you. So when you say that you develop proper habits, I do believe that you are so much better off assuming certain responsibilities even today. Thanks for your time and your attention. See you in the next video, and if you like it, click there and subscribe. And tell me about the things you would like that I mentioned in here. Thank you again for your time.